Hello everybody, this is Charlie at My Messy Fingers. I built this entire signature. I forgot to turn my video on, so that's totally on me. It's not camera related or phone related. I blew it. So we're going to walk you through, or I'm going to walk you through how I built this. So before I get into this, I got myself flustered. We've made some pockets. This pocket is going to measure 9 3/4 in the height by 8, let me get in here, by 8 1/4 in the width. You're going to score along the top at a 1/2 inch, along the bottom at a 1/2 inch. You're going to fold those under. Here we go. We got the pocket right here. Actually, it's coming in at 8 3/8 in the width by 9 3/4 in the height. So 8 3/8 in your width, 9 3/4 in your height. You're going to have a 1/2 inch score here at the top and at the bottom. You're going to fold those under, put your tape, crease your score line, and then I used a 1/2 inch piece of tape on this inside seam. I did miter my corners here. So when I mounted this, I started here, lined it up here, held it in place, and then I secured this tape because I took this off first. And then I came in and I picked out the tape off of these 2 rows, and then that has my pockets attached. All right, that was the first thing we did. The next thing we did was we cut our inserts. These are 8 by 8. I used some gold braided trim that I have, so these slide in nice and smooth, and the gold braided trim will hang out from the end of the pockets, indicating that there's something to pull on. Now you can use whatever you want to use, or don't use anything at all. You can use some of the brass items. If you didn't build this spine piece, you can use some of the brass items by putting it on some ribbon, cut a 1/2 inch row of paper, and then cover it, and then that can hang out the side. So that's something you can do. So getting in here into the big meat of the things, this was the piece that I used right here. The reverse side of it had that big clock. So this is what I'm using to trim here. This came in at 8 1/4 inches in the width by 8 3/4 in the height. I took a cutout, mounted it onto some cardstock, and I just simply taped down this edge so that this became a tuck. So I can show you here real quick. So this is a tuck. And then you have this pocket, and I'll give you that measurement here in a minute. This is a photo mat. So let's deal with this first. This measures at 3 by 8. You're going to score it at 4 inches. And then I used magnets here for the closure, and I cut out some trim, and I used this card for the front of it. So we have a photo mat, we have a tuck, and then we've got this big pocket down here. This pocket measured at 2 1/2 inches by 8 1/4, and I used this trim out of my stash to accent this. And I was looking for a bit of scrap so I could show you the back side of it. So this is some, so it is, this piece is from the piece that has all the shelves with all the toys on it. And then I cut out and put in the word Merry Christmas. Up here at the top, I made a flap. This has the teddy bear, one of those large cutouts. and I trimmed it in to fit, and then I cut this big bow and covered the bow that was on the top of the teddy bear. And this has been mounted onto some cardstock to give it some sturdiness. And then I also popped it up, so there's a little bit of height here. So this measures at 5 5/8 across. I'm trying to remember. And this ended up being at 6 1/8 in the length of this. Again, that 1/8 inch is to adjust for any trim if you're using a die or a punch that you would lose. You're going to score it at 1/2 inch, and you're going to score it at 5/8 of an inch. And then that's going to get centered. I was approximately 1 3/8 of an inch off each side when I centered mine in. And then this piece here came out of scrap, but it was a short piece, but that's no worries. We just make a pocket, and we're going to pull in this paper so that there is a nice flow here. So this pocket measured at 2 1/2 inches by 8 1/2. Now, if I'm going too fast, just stop the video, because you can stop and you can go back and replay things. And then I used a bling. These are cutouts, and I mounted them onto some cardstock. So that completes this piece. These two pieces here, this, I'm going to be a 1/2 inch, measured in at 7 5/8, allowing for an 1/8 of an inch cutoff by your 8 3/4. This pocket measured in at 1 1/2 inches. There is a trio of bows, and I cut all 3 of them out. And I put the bigger one here, the next size here, because this was a larger piece, and then I put the small one over here. I do have these popped up as well. I added some bling, and now we have a nice long length pocket, but there's plenty of room here to put in some fixed photos as well as utilizing the pocket. I'm so mad I did that. Okay, so over here, we have another long pocket. This piece here, I got to do this upside down because I got to come in 1/2. I'm going to be at 6 inches in the width, again allowing for an 1/8 of an inch to be trimmed off if you're using a die or a punch. And it's 8 3/4 in the height. This little pocket here measured in at, it's hard to look at this upside down, 1 1/4 inches. Again, I've added some bling, the bow, and some of the trim out of the scrap, which happens to be the piece of paper in my scraps that had that row of houses. I put a magnet here on this side, and I matched the magnet up to this side so that it would close. This piece here matches with this. They came off the same sheet of paper. This will be on the top, and then this one here will be on the top here on this side. And that completes this build. And my apologies, I'm just so mad at myself. Oh gosh, I get things going and then I just kind of space sometimes. All right, so what I'm trying to do here is set a theme. So you're out Christmas shopping. Now here's the Christmas tree. So we will move on to the next signature on the next build. And I will try to remember to turn my camera on. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.